Guys, this is a video to demonstrate the import file for SolBox and how to populate and import simply. So what we can see here is the import template, and it's been designed to import orders per row and based on either a pickup, a delivery, or a pickup and a delivery. So today we're going to focus on delivery. And the key things we need to consider is to have in this column here the word delivery. If we are obviously doing a pickup, and if it's a pickup dash delivery is a two-leg job, which we would need to have the pickup columns complete and the delivery columns complete. But that's a different use case for today's video. But the key things we're going to focus on is delivery. So we'll just hide the pickup columns. And the things we're going to consider today are having the delivery column filled out the minimum amount of data we need to import. So first of all, it's obviously having this complete with the correct term. Import needs to have in there either a 1 or a 0. 0 won't import that row. Sorry, that column, so that row. 1 will. So if we put a 0 here, it will actually not import. So where that's important is at the end of the deliveries that you'd like to import, having a 0 and then dragging that down so we know that it won't try and import a row with no information. So that's two of the most important things. Then get into the data. So the data is basically designed to import the customer's name and their ID. So the ID essentially is the ID that will be stored in the system, so you can search for that customer and it will store all the information about that customer based on their ID. So an ID would usually represent what or the same ID that you have in maybe your accounting package or a job card that you receive from somebody else you're doing the work for. So the ID essentially would be the unique identifier for that customer and that location in the system. So we can import a different address for that customer and ID later, but we need to have that ID saved within the system. So in this case, I've kept it simple, one down to whatever. Latitude and longitude we don't need to import because it will automatically do that on the import. So we need to have an address. So either an address, full address with the postcode if possible. The more information, the better. So you might attach there. We're actually pulling from a different spreadsheet here, which I'll pull in a second. But so this is a key important. That's key important. That's key important. First name and last name not so important, but if you do want to populate that in the order, it is important. Same with email. So if you'd like to have an email attached on the order, so that the order has an email to notify the customer of their delivery potentially. Same with phone number. If you want to have a phone number attached, so that it sends them an SMS pre and post delivery, put a 1 in there. So these columns aren't essential, but if you'd like to, you can put them in there. This column here is essential. So at the moment, we've got it as date and time. You could just do time if you like. And then tolerance is basically, so they said 7 a.m. and 10 hours later. That's essentially what tolerance is. So the time window is 10 hours. We can then change that individually if we need to, but most companies would import a bigger time window and then change it in the system, or if they know the time window, they'd put the time window in here. So for instance, if this was between 7 and 8 a.m., it would be 60-minute tolerance, which means between 7 and 8. And then when we get there, it's a 10-minute service time to deliver. All right, so these fields here are essential, right? And if you don't have a tolerance, you can leave that blank, but usually it's just a standard tolerance is good. so that when you're doing the planning, it knows how to create the run to give you realistic estimated time of arrival at each site. So order details is the notes that the driver will receive and will import based on the order. So you can change that, right? Most companies will change that. And code is 1234. The driver will receive that and it will also import on the order. Or we're delivering 3-ton sand, right? And boxes, whatever it might be, right? So that will show on there. Assigned driver we don't need to worry about for this. Customer reference essentially is your job invoice number. So whatever that customer reference, doesn't need to be unique, but whatever the sales order number is or the invoice number that goes in there. Payer is usually for third party payers or when you're doing a pickup and a delivery. So we don't need to worry about that for today. Vehicle, if you want to automatically assign it to a vehicle, you can. I think that's for a different video. And then if you've got weight and volume on the order, so it would automatically put that into the order so we know that if we are loading based on a certain amount of capacity per vehicle. Again, we can talk about that in another video. Not essential, not important. Run number, basically, if there's a run that this order will go on, we can automatically put that onto a manifest. So I'll do that for one as an example, and we do that for these 4 or 5 orders. What that will do is it will basically create a run based on those jobs, so we can then see what that looks like. Alternatively, it's going to import all of them individually. So again, not important if it's individual or on a run. So we can also do that based on zones. So we can get that into another video, but the purpose of this import is just to get the data in. And if you do want to have a cost associated with it, you can have that as well. So key things to remember is the green columns are the ones that are important and the other ones are just optional. Okay. The other thing to consider is if you are importing based on a delivery time or date, and you haven't specified that in the date here, and you just put a time, which is also an option. In the settings, the 0 will import it for today's date, and 1 will be for tomorrow, and so on. 2 would be for the day after. So some companies want to go through and change, instead of having date, just change the time for each one so that it's more specific on the time, and they can do that. They can make changes on it really easily and change the tolerance. But if you're just going to get the data in, keep it simple. We can change it later. And what I was showing before about the address is, in this case, we've actually loaded in some data that's exported out of another system and dropped it into the spreadsheet, and it's automatically grouped them into job manifest addresses, job addresses, and imported it here. So not important for a simple import, but just option is that we could export out of your system, drop it in here as it seems, as it looks, and it'll populate it here and populate other columns as well if we have that data. Alternatively, you can just type in the address. Okay, so the version that you'll receive will be typing in the address. So the next step is just to save that as an import template. Okay, and then we close. And it's important to close it before you import. Okay, so then now we're in the system. We can either import via the dashboard up here, or we can import via the orders tab. Okay, so if we go import and we look for our import spreadsheet, let's have a look. Oh. This one here. And now what we're going to do is the system's automatically going to import the data, and we're going to see that the runs are created for the zones or the manifest that we created. So we see here now that's created these automatically onto a run because we've identified, whereas the rest have now just been imported individually. Okay. We can also see that it's created this driver with some runs and some zones. So there's a few different ways that the system operates, and I'll quickly just show you while we're on this. So we can see that if we go back to the dashboard, we can see, go to today, we can see that the system has automatically created these runs because we identified that it was a driver and a manifest for those. So there's those 4 runs that I did on the camera. They're the 4 runs that automatically created them. And then same with this one, was already on a run. The key things to consider here are you can now go through and quickly optimize that and dispatch or drag in more jobs to that manifest. Hit optimize, which we'll discuss on another video. But now you've got your list of orders that have been imported, and you can automatically just group them if you want to, and quickly just drop them into a manifest, its own new manifest. And you select your driver and your vehicle, and you can dispatch it, right? That's another example, okay? So that's a way of importing the orders. The manifests have automatically been created, which you can see here now, especially the one that I just created then. So it's as simple as now going into that. You can add and remove, optimize, and then dispatch. We can also then go into the orders tab, and we can see that these orders have all been imported from that spreadsheet. And we can see that the ones that have been on the manifest have been manifested. That's the one that I just created and the run that we already imported. And then you've just seen all your other jobs that have been imported. So you can either manually group these onto a manifest, right? Pick your manifest and attach it. Alternatively, you can select all of them and then go into an allocation wizard to do auto allocating or auto optimize, where you can then group and put them into your own manifest. Right, so getting into the details now, but what you'll see is now you've got the option to create those runs and hit submit, and it'll automatically now add those 2 runs to the manifest list for the day. So now on the dashboard, we've got that visual now that shows more jobs that have been allocated to manifest, and we can still see that there's more pending jobs that are unassigned to a manifest. Okay, so different ways to plan and optimize. Most of the time, you'll look at it from a dashboard or a manifest view, and then when you're ready to send it to a driver, all you need to do is open the manifest, attach a driver or a vehicle, and hit save, and that will show up on the driver's app. It will also show where the driver is that you've assigned, and then when you're ready, you can then get proof of deliveries from the app. If you need to provide a manual copy to the driver, we can hit some summary, provides a summary of what the driver's seen on his app, and you can see it on the system. So hope that helps, guys. Please reach out to our support at solbox.it if you have any questions, and copy in your account manager. Cheers.